Update to breaking news out of Beloit. This is the active scene in the area of the 1900 block of Wisconsin Avenue that we told you about on WIFR News Now at 5.
The Rock County Sheriff's Department has taken over the investigation of what they are just calling right now as an incident. They have blocked off Wisconsin Avenue from Bayless to Eddy Avenue. They asked drivers to avoid the area. But now new information of what is believed to be a second incident in Beloit.
This second call is in the 1400 block of Argyle Avenue. Witnesses tell us shots may have been fired at a vehicle, but we are trying to confirm that information.
Police are advising residents to stay clear of this area as well as they continue to investigate. We will continue to monitor both situations, both active scenes, and provide updates as more information becomes available.